Welcome to A Therapist, a Buddhist, and You, brought to you by the Recovery Collective in Annapolis, Maryland. My name is Luke DuBois, and I'm here with Zalmal, my co-host.
Hey, Luke. What's going on?
Maybe we should say our co-host, because it's a therapist, a Buddhist, and you.
Yeah.
So we've got our listeners here today. So I want to explore, well, before we explore our topic, last episode I didn't really talk about people liking, subscribing. But now that we literally have thousands of listens and downloads, pretty wild. It's hard for me to wrap my head around. Thousands.
It's crazy.
I do want to go back to looking at some of the statistics that almost 70% of our listeners all are from Apple. So the neat thing about you Apple listeners out there, and thank you for listening again, we do appreciate it. Apple has an advantage in terms of helping us with, there's these stars, and you can give us 4 or 5 stars. 5 stars if you really like us. If you don't want to give us 5 stars, just, fast forward 10 seconds. But Apple, unlike some of the other platforms, gives you an opportunity to leave a customer review. So if in your heart you are so desired to thank us in any way, please give us a review. And since 70% of you guys are doing it in Apple, and we have thousands of listeners, we would love to see a couple more ratings and, most importantly, reviews. And of course, I think the best thing you can do is, if you found some of the things that we are saying in the topics we're focusing on, as we're talking about all things health and wellness, please share it. Please share this podcast with other potential listeners, because that's how we've been organically growing to thousands of listeners. So we appreciate that. Yeah,
it's great. And yes, you mentioned earlier before we started recording that we've been doing this for more than half a year.
Yeah, we just hit just over the half a year mark.
Yeah, I love it. I love it in a way that this is kind of like part of my routine now. And I get a lot out of this. And it's also like unfolding very naturally, which has been great. I do listen to it just to see where we're at late night. I usually have a long drive after putting the kids to sleep at their grandparents, and I listen to it, and I was like, oh wow, there's like a growth from January to here,
no doubt.
How we evolve, and it's quite remarkable. So I'm really glad that we get to do this.
I've been hesitant. We're getting more listeners the more we release episodes and the topics we're talking about, and more people are checking out their first episode, What a Therapist, a Buddhist, and You Can Do for You. I forget what the title's called, but I'm almost nervous to listen to ourselves on that first episode, but I'll have to go back and listen because people are interested. So Thank you guys for listening. Even if you don't leave a review or a rating, thanks for listening, and please share.
Yeah, thank you all.
So the topic today, I'm going to ask you a question, and then we'll go back to who has spoke on this topic. But kind of the essence of what we're talking about, Zal, do you believe that every problem is open to a spiritual solution?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And the answer is yes for me, which comes with the premise is that in my belief, I don't know if this is just my personal belief or a Buddhist belief, I'm not sure, but the seen world comes from the unseen. So the visible world comes from the invisible that I don't have access to 100%, So the other way is true, that if there's a problem, it's coming from the unseen world. So that problem can be solved with a spiritual solution.
I can resonate with that so much when you say the answer can come from the unseen. So often when I have a problem, it's not the tangible kind of, hey, there's a pothole, don't fall into the pothole, go around it. Yes, those things still happen to me, but often my answers or my solutions are from the unseen, which we'll talk about for sure. So there's this fella, it's spiritual in nature, I would say, and his name is Deepak Chopra. For those of you who don't know who he is, he's certainly a prominent figure in the field of holistic health, alternative medicine, spirituality, meditation, personal development, and goes on and on and on. And he's a Indian American author, physician, and really big and influential, one of the influential voices in the mind-body wellness movement, and that's certainly something that we do here at the Recovery Collective with looking at individuals integratively and holistically, functionally with the mind, body, and spiritual connection. So he believes there's 3 phases of awareness, and we're going to connect this to spiritual solutions potentially. Mm-hmm. And the first level of awareness, he calls it contracted awareness, contracted awareness. The visual I often give people when they're in this level of awareness, if I contract my bicep, so right now I'm making like a bicep curl fist, and I'm putting resistance on my fist with the other arm to make sure that my bicep's still contracted. And if I hold this bicep contraction for minutes, potentially hours, you just observing what's going to happen to this contraction in my arm if I continue to stay in contraction.
There's going to be a strain.
Yep. At the
Soreness.
bicep, we're at, soreness.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going. What else is going to happen?
Fatigue.
Yeah. Not only at the bicep, but I got all these other muscles that are working and stabilizing and are beginning to contract too. So even if I stop having it contracted, or a la the problem, I'm going to feel it residually in other places. So much so, if it stays contracted for too long, even when I do get out of that contraction, I might feel it for days afterwards. So that's a visible way to talk about what we mean by contracted awareness. And another way I explain it, it's that limited consciousness. And when someone comes, whether it's a family member, whether someone comes to therapy, someone at work, and it's the example I often give is, man, I keep that asshole boss. No matter where I work, I always have an asshole boss. Another example of contracted awareness could be, no matter how responsible I am with money, I keep getting in these financial issues or in debt, or things keep happening and I just keep having issues with money. What are some other examples that come to your mind when you think of contracted awareness?
Yeah. First of all, this is very interesting because I feel like I'm listening and almost interviewing you on this topic. And I have a limited knowledge of this individual, but I'm very curious about this topic. So I'm glad we're talking about it. But yeah, contracted awareness, it's what comes to mind is that the narrow or channel vision or limited reality. And being limited to what I believe, what I see, and then just the world ending there. That's it. Nothing beyond that.
Yes, when we feel stuck in something. Mm-hmm. It's when we feel trapped, or like you said, our perceptions are narrowed and restricted. Our thoughts and emotions are just kind of keeping us into the level of the problem. So if you ever doubt, wait a minute, am I in contracted awareness right now? And doing group work, people would talk about their problems. And sometimes someone would give them a perspective. And then the first person, it said, man, I keep getting in these toxic relationships and I don't know why. Or why do I always pick these asshole partners? And then someone might give a perspective or their experience, and their first response is, yeah, but that's not in this case. Or someone gives another perspective and they go, I tried that. Well, that won't work because I know. These are examples of no matter what we do, no matter what action we take, we feel like we're just digging a deeper hole. And that's definitely a barometer of, am I in contracted awareness? Well, if you're frustrated and if you feel like you are doing action and you feel like you're just digging a deeper hole, well, that's an example of contracted awareness. Mm-hmm. It sucks.
Yeah, it does.
We can feel that way with, we talked about it in terms of relationships, with work, with finances, with our mental health. Sometimes people feel they're in that stuck and that suck with anxiety or depression. And no matter what I'm doing, I just can't get out of this. So I think we can all relate to different aspects of being in contracted awareness. Mm-hmm. We want to get out of the stuck and suck. Deepak talks about shifting our consciousness from the level of the problem to the level of solution. So we want to go from the level of the problem to a whole different viewpoint. He calls this expanded awareness. the belief is we have to change these 5 things. And if we change these 5 things, we're able to go from problem to solution. You ready to hear them out?
Yeah.
So we'll talk about these 5 things. We'll break them down. And then we go, okay, how do we actually, we know what these 5 things are. Now, how do we make that change? So the 5 things that we move towards expanded awareness: perspective, assumptions, expectations, beliefs, and feelings, or mood or feelings. So these things are interconnected elements. And if we do that, if we change these 5 things, then we go from problem to solution. Let's break them down. What do you know about perspective? What is a perspective? Why is that important? You talked about this already.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is like my upbringing, information that I've received, beliefs that are built over the years, or basically unexamined beliefs that I never question. So that's what comes to mind about perspectives, a viewpoint that was never really questioned. But also at the same time, it's not really my fault that I have this, because it's because of all the information that were given to me up until this point, which was never challenged. Mm-hmm. That's what comes to mind about perspective.
Hey listeners, we've got something extraordinary to share, a chance to reshape your journey no matter where you are. You're familiar with Zalmal's insights on our podcast, but there's more. Through the Recovery Collective, he offers life, mindfulness, recovery coaching, and meditation groups guiding you toward a fulfilled and mindful existence, no matter your location. Zal's journey from a Burmese Buddhist novice to a skilled practitioner equips him with timeless wisdom and contemporary strategies. Whether you're navigating life's shifts, seeking clarity, or pursuing self-awareness, Zal's coaching serves as a compass guiding you toward success. The best part? Zal's approach centers on your growth and empowerment. He equips you with tools to tap into your inner strengths for continuous evolution no matter where you are. Ready to take that next step in your personal growth journey? Connect with Zalmal and the Recovery Collective at 240-813-8135 from anywhere in the world. Investigating in your journey reaps immeasurable rewards. Let Zalmal guide you toward resilience, clarity, and empowerment no matter where life finds you. Now, let's transition back into our conversation. Stay tuned, stay curious, and keep your journey growing. If I'm in, once again, let's all feel being in the problem, and that suck. If my perspective is you are doing me wrong and dirty, well, I don't have to take accountability. If my perspective is you wronged me or I can't get out of this, well, we're going to continue to fill that perspective and put energy towards that perspective. Mm-hmm. Here's an example. I do couples work and or family work sometimes, and often with, let's say, addictions. Right? We have a client that just got out of treatment, and we have a family member or a husband or a spouse, and often there's an argument. And the argument is the spouse sees one thing and the client sees another in early recovery, and they begin to butt heads. Their perspectives are different. So often what I try to do is I go, little time out, take a little pause, we stop for a second, and I go, Johnny boy, you're here because you want to get sober, right? No. Okay, good. Sally Mae, you're here because you want to take care of yourself and also support his recovery, right? Oh, good. So we have the same perspective on that you want to get sober and you want to support him and protect yourself in this recovery process. Everybody see eye to eye on that? Great. So there's a starting point in terms of seeing out of a similar lens. Often when we're in the level of the problem, you guys can't see me at home, but it's like a racehorse with blinders. My perception is my reality. So when my perception is you're the problem, when my perception is it won't get better, well, it can be hard to change that if we stay in that level of consciousness, stay in that level of the problem. Often I throw a book down on the table and I ask someone, where's the front of that book? And then they say it's the cover. And then someone might say, well, no, it's the top of the book. And someone might actually open up and say, well, this is the front of the book. Meaning what? They're all right, but if you're stuck in your perspective, then the other person's wrong. and you don't have the flexibility to change yourself.
So problem to the solution. I like what you're saying, especially because that makes me appreciate conflicts and problems. Because when I have a perspective, and if things are just going great with that, I never challenge it. But if there is a conflict in relation to that perspective, it becomes an opportunity for me to be like, oh, is there a cost to this? What is this perspective costing me? Am I losing my happiness? Am I losing relationships? Am I losing money? Whatever it may be. So it becomes like an opportunity to examine that perspective. Is it actually doing me any good? Maybe it has done me good so far, but maybe it's time for me to let it go, or look at it from a different point of view. So that's what I'm hearing about perspective. And I do want to go back to, like, this is not really the theme of it, but what I understand as a Buddhist in my Buddhist world is just the fact that from the point of view of the karma, that it's not my fault when I have these perspective, because it can even dig into the deeper hole that why am I this way, So because in our tradition, there are like causes and conditions. I was talking to my mom about this. She's been taking some Abhidhamma classes, which is Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist psychology classes. And we're just talking, and she was just making a comment about what she's learned in the class is that, let's say we were talking, and then she was like, if you look to a flower that you see, like for that flower to come into your consciousness, to your eyes, a lot of millions and millions of factors get involved for it to happen. And these senses meet and it happens. So same thing was true with these perspectives, that there are just so many things that I have no control over, which came together for me to have this perspective. So in a way, I am kind of, it's not my fault that I come here, but at the same time, I'm responsible to challenge that if it's causing me more problems than not.
Yeah, well said. And one of the things that make changing a perspective challenging to change is the next thing, assumptions. Now, I know English isn't your first language, but have you ever heard of this saying of what they say about assumptions?
What is it?
Assumptions comes from the word assume. And if we do assumptions, it makes an ass out of you and me.
Gotcha. Play of words.
So a play of words.
Yeah.
But it's a legitimate one. When do we make assumptions? There's a reason, and a physiological, is it physiological? There's a brain reason why we make assumptions. Why do we make assumptions?
Yeah, I don't know about the brain too much, but I do know that brain has a tendency to fill in the gaps. If it doesn't know it, just make it up. Yep.
So one way to look at it is, and we've talked about this, we have what separates us as a species in a lot of ways is this thing in the front of our head called the cerebral cortex, which literally means we get to forward think. So we forward think, just like you said, to fill in the gaps. So when we're cavemen and I have to decide, do I have to protect my kids and my fire from the saber tooth or this lion or this bear? Oh my. So I have to make an assumption. Now it's evolved over the years, and when there's this level of unknown, we fill in the gap. Sometimes incorrectly. Now when we're in the level of the problem, if we're making assumptions that fuel the perspective of I don't have the power that I'd like to, that it's Joe Schmo's fault, that I wasn't wrong, that you see what I'm getting at. Assumptions can fuel an unhealthy perspective. Assumptions can keep the gap of uncertainty in an unhealthy way.
Yeah, it's not based on facts, but it's based on opinions or projections, speculations.
Fear.
Yeah.
So we've got two things so far. We've got when we're in the level of the problem, we need to find a way to change our perspective, our assumptions, expectations. What a fun one. Expectations. In the recovery community, you'll hear people say that our expectations are inversely proportional to our serenity. Meaning, if I have less expectations on people, places, and things, the more peace of mind, calmness of mind, and serenity I have. The more expectations that aren't met, the less peace of mind and serenity I have. Any experience with that?
Yeah, lots.
Me too.
Yeah, it goes back to that thing again, like my existence in this world, my brain has a navigational system to determine where I'm at. So in a way, it's function, but at the same time, it comes with some defects, some loopholes, So like, if I think about expectations, it comes from a programming of what has happened before. So this has happened before. It always happened that way. So I'm going to expect this to happen, based on what has happened before. But at the same time, that becomes like a fuel for that contracted awareness because I'm like limited to my past, what has happened. So it's going to be exactly the same way. And I have expectations out of this. But life is new every day. It's not the same. Even the breath that I breathe just now and the next moment, everything's new. So if I'm operating from that expectations and limited, I'm kind of missing the beauty of the life.
Yeah, I think expectations can sometimes fuel depression, anxiety, fear, a lot of these things. I often break down expectations in two forms: positive expectations and negative expectations. So positive expectations are based on desire, want, Buddhist language, cravings. Negative expectations are based on fear. And me as a recovering alcoholic addict, I think I often ran with positive and negative expectations at the same time. I want this to happen and my fear that it's not going to happen. So I had like a double whammy of expectations, which often led to resentments. What? You can't read my mind? You should know that I want you to bring home dinner tonight, and you didn't meet that expectation because I didn't communicate that, because I made an assumption that you would know, but that was just my perspective. See what I'm getting at? How these things compound on each other? So expectations can be challenging for a lot of people. Knowing for you as long as I have, there's certainly a lot of Buddhist principles that help with expectations.
An example? Are you asking for an example?
Well, you do seem to have a lot of, I called you the Sultan of Serenity for a reason a couple episodes back.
I'm a human being. I struggle with expectations a lot.
Yeah, that is for sure.
It has so much power over my well-being, negatively, when I have expectations, because it is as if I know. And I'm trying to relate that with meditation and Buddhist principle, but nothing's really coming to mind.
I'll relate it to 12-step principles. The first 3 steps are a wonderful way of counteracting expectations. Well, if I want something, whether it's drugs, alcohol, whether it's sex, whether it's a raise, whatever it is, I can control the things that I can, but there's a lot of it that I am powerless over. If I've got a felony charge, I have a desire not to go to jail, so I did the probation, I did the treatment, I did all those things, but I am powerless over what that judge decides to do. Now, I can go batshit crazy, worrying that I'm going to get 3 months of jail time, but step 2 says, let me decide to turn our will and our life over to the care of God as we understood Him. Well, what do I understand? Step 3, I decide to turn it over. And if I do so, I might get some serenity out of the deal. So I work backwards. Step 3 says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. So if I turn my will, if I go, here's my expectations, I turn it over to the higher power. Right? I just turn it over. Well, why do I do that? Because it's going to help me with step 2, that I believe that this power is going to restore me to sanity. And my favorite way of defining sanity is serenity, calmness of mind, peace of mind. Well, if my expectations, or whether it's fear of me going to jail, or fear of me, or my desire not to go to jail, positive and negative, that, okay, if I do my part, I'll turn it over, my higher power is going to take care of me, and whatever the unmanageability and powerlessness is with the legal situation, I don't have unhealthy expectations. There's a difference between healthy boundaries and expectations. And I imagine there's some people listening, whether they're in the car or driving home from work or working out, and going, well, what's the difference between expectations and healthy boundaries? Well, they can be the same. Sure. Let's look at this in a way that's fueling contracted awareness. Let's look at this in terms of what expectation or unhealthy boundary is fueling the level of the problem. And that's what we need to change.
Yeah. I don't want to jump ahead, but it's already projecting towards what's coming, because the expectation, the best way to tackle that is that, what do I even know? Like, anything is possible, kind of feeling that, because it is true, right? In your situation, what you have said about the legal system, and I have multiple examples in my own life too, where, like, how am I even sure that this is going to happen? Like, because there are just so many factors that are unseen. So anything is possible in this moment kind of feeling is the opposite.
I remember being in front of that judge, language from the heart, speaking from the heart, and just realizing I did everything in my power that I could for my health and my recovery. And I was looking at 3 months of jail time. But I had this calmness and peace, and I didn't have any expectations. My lawyer believed that I was going to do some jail time, but I was open to whatever. I didn't have any expectations. I was at peace. I wasn't run by desire or fear. I was in a level of quote unquote radical acceptance. I was at peace. I didn't have a unhealthy desire or fear, and I was okay with the unmanageability in that position. Luckily, I didn't do any jail time. All right, let's go to the next one. So we've done perspective, assumptions, expectations, and now we're on beliefs. So the way I explain beliefs is I try to give it even more depth, more meaning, that everybody has core beliefs. And I'll say it another way. What I believe is often perceived as who I am. So, if you challenge my core belief system, you're going to piss me off. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And we see a lot of that now. We see that divisiveness with politics and other things going on now, and people are really good at divisiveness and separating and focusing on the differences. And if you challenge my belief system, I'm going to be angry at you. Because, do you know what I mean by that? What I believe is who I am? Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, it's a form of identity.
Yes.
Who do I think I am?
Yeah.
And, I mean, all these things are quite interconnected, right?
Very
Assumptions,
much.
perspective, beliefs, expectations, which for me as a Buddhist goes back to that concept of anatta, which is the absence of self. Like, if I start listing everything I think I am, the more I do that, the more I realize that, wait, who am I really kind of feeling? So like, but these beliefs are what keeps us in a society, like who I think I am as a identity, national identity, religious identity, whatever it is. But I hold on to it because that's how I exist, right? This is who I am. But it's also at the same time can be costly, especially if there is an event or somebody who challenged that, I get offended, right?
Mm-hmm. And I don't think I'm going out on a limb when I say that everybody has prejudice. Now, I am a social worker. I was raised by a Methodist preacher, my dad. So, and I have a beard and long hair, but I promise you I'm not Jesus. But my point being, even though I was brought up in this, honest, open, loving, accepting people for who they are, not as I would have them type of environment, and went into a service-oriented field, every human being has prejudice. Now, why is that important to bring up? Because, I've got belief systems that need to be changed. I'll give you a great example, being, as if you listen to any episodes, I often bring up, I was a former clinical director of a treatment facility. And then these people, I'm often dealing with individuals that have done 6 to 8 tours in Iraq, Iran, and Afghanistan. And they come to this treatment facility, and then they're there for substance use and mental health. And there's this guy sitting there that's telling them when to go, where to go, except everything except when to go to the bathroom. And then we bring up the steps. And this person that's done 6 to 8 tours, who's very decorated, and then he looks at the steps, it says, "You are powerless over drugs and alcohol. Your life had become unmanageable. Surrender to win." Do you think that's even in his vocabulary? Hell no. So he had an understandable belief system that no, that's a negative connotation. I don't know how you expect me to get sober through the steps. Totally get it. But it was neat because part of the perspective that the group gave him says, man, we're not worried about the things that you can manage. Rock on. We're worried about the things that you can't manage. The stuff that you, not the stuff that you have control over and power over. You keep that power and manageability. We want to help you with the stuff that you realize that you don't have control over. And it was just like one of those light bulb moments of, oh, I'm not, waving the white flag in the sense of, yes, you can have all of me good and bad, but I'm not giving you the things that are rocking and rolling good in my life. I'm just turning over the parts that I can't control the way I want to. And it was just like this freeing moment for him, his perspective change. All of a sudden, the negative connotation of unmanageability and powerlessness and turning his, all of his will over. And it was just a really neat experience to see, like, all of a sudden, expectations, beliefs all began to change a little bit, and he became open to 12 steps just from other people's experiences and other people's perspectives. It was powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a good topic. And I do want to mention too, kind of like putting in some Buddhist thoughts about the fact that nothing is all or nothing,
Yes.
I have to step away from that all or nothing kind of way of thinking, because it's okay to have these expectations, perspectives, because it makes me function in the world, Mm-hmm. In our, that dried out Buddhism called Abhidharma, which is translated as the higher teachings of Buddhism, which is like a Buddhist philosophy, psychology. And there are some elements, which I'll just simplify, is that there's a conventional truth and ultimate truth. So it's very important to identify those two. Yeah. Because conventional truth, for example, can be like, Luke, you will ask me, how did you get here to the office? I'll be like, yeah, I came here with a car. So that's a conventional truth when I say car, because we had an agreement about car. But then when you ask me, what is a car? Is it the wheel? Is it the steering? Is it the engine? There's no such thing as car. But it helps me to communicate to you that, yeah, this is how I got here. But then if you ask me, like, what is a car? I have no answer, But then the ultimate truth is more of like gravity, that it doesn't care if it's somebody jumps off the really high building. It doesn't matter how tall, small, what race. It doesn't matter. There's a ultimate truth to it. So just wanted to mention that. I think we'll probably end up talking about that when we get to the expanded awareness. I feel like that's where things open up.
Yeah. It's the belief systems that are fueling contracted awareness. It's the expectations that are fueling the problem. Mm-hmm. And being able to go or question, and we'll break that down here in a little bit. Is this fueling the problem? We'll jump more on that in a second. Mm-hmm. And the last thing, feelings. Don't think this is a hot take. Maybe it is. I think feelings are spiritual. I'll ask it in this way to you, Zal. Do you know what I mean? And do you believe feelings are spiritual?
Yeah, emotions, feelings, they're spontaneous. So I would say spiritual. And also they are unseen in a way. Mm-hmm. They come out of nowhere. So I feel like that's what you mean by spiritual, that it is alive and it is electric. There's charge to it. That's how I think about emotions, feelings.
Yeah, we asked in the beginning that does every problem have a spiritual solution? And the word spirituality can have 1,000 different definitions. 2 potential definitions are there's a rhyme or reason why things happen the way they do. So even though they're spontaneous, there might be a reason why we feel the things we do. I also believe that there's this level of, in terms of recovery language, powerlessness behind the initial feeling. If you were to cuss me out and call me an asshole, I might get angry. Mm-hmm. Now, I might not be able to stop that first emotion or that second emotion. Now, I'm not powerless over the other emotions, but that initial emotion or two, where's that coming from? I'm this intuitive piece that I'm like powerless over. Some people say love is spirituality. Love is higher power. That It's a powerful thing. We can't control who we do and don't love, blah, 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 blah. But also when it comes to spirituality and feelings, that you could be feeling a certain way and you could try to hide it like you're wearing a bulletproof Kevlar jacket and if you're feeling sad and not show it, any of it, we could just talk about sports for 5 or 10 minutes. And even though you've got this angst or deep depression and we don't talk about it, I could walk out of this room and I could feel a little different, right? So we might call that empath or empathy, or we can feel. We don't even have to talk about it, but we can feel with someone, or even at some level what someone else is feeling. To me, that's an emotional connection, but I think that's a spiritual connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing about feelings, is that we make it worse, especially if it's something negative, if we suppress it. That to me is why it is spiritual, is in a way that it cannot be hidden anyway. So it takes more effort to hide it. So I guess it also goes back to some of the upbringing based on an individual, that if feelings are not expressed in a family, you don't feel, comfortable sharing about it. But actually, you make it worse by trapping it all. But it also goes back to that thing about beliefs and values, like unexamined beliefs and unexamined values. Because when receiving some information, so like when somebody curse, it just sound, but then it passed through my belief system, my linguistic skills, and then, oh, that's offensive,
Yeah.
So it's just a bunch of information passing through my values, and some kind of feelings are created. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, based on the person's background, trauma or abuse, whatever it may be, I think the thing is not to be lack of feelings, but to respond appropriately. Mm-hmm. Because I can have a very extreme or sensitive belief system that is finding everything offensive, but I would rather have a belief system that is more accepting and also, leaves room.
So as we go over these 5 things, the last one being feelings, and we relate this to spirituality and feelings being spiritual, we change these things from problem to solution. So Deepak says there's a way to actually change these things, and it's an acronym, and it can be a powerful technique. It's simple, but I think it can be an effective way to guide us toward expanded awareness. I think we did a really good job of breaking down these relatively simple words to change. Now, let's find out what Deepak recommends. So, the word, and it's ultimately an acronym, is STOP. S-T-O-P. So the first S is yes, stop. I don't know about you, but when I'm in the level of a problem or a significant problem, I'm often like a chicken with my head chopped off, meaning I'm going everywhere but nowhere. That I might be doing action like we talked about at the beginning of the episode. Whatever action I take, I might be going in circles. I'm just digging a deeper hole. I'm saying, I know, yeah, but that won't work. Well, if whatever I'm doing is not working, I might as well stop.
Mm. Yeah, stop to me also means pausing, like taking a break. That's why I sacredly leave time for my meditation. No matter, I have a really good discipline. No matter what's happening, even if the situation is calling my name, I'm like, no, I need this 10-minute space where I don't even move, sit in silence and stillness. And those are powerful moments for me to pause.
That stop, that silence, that stillness is more valuable than any action you could take in those 10 minutes, it seems like. Mm. Yeah. And it's just sometimes when we stop, we can realize we're in a contracted state. We can realize, oh, wait, I'm facing these challenges. There's this negativity. I can take a moment and take a little mental break, often in the form of mindfulness. So first S, stop. Then the T is to take 3 deep breaths. 3 deep breaths. Why 3 deep breaths? Our last episode was on breath work. Thank you for that lovely article. If you haven't listened yet, go back to last week's episode and enjoy. Why take 3 deep breaths? What happens when you take 3 deep breaths?
Yeah, awareness, right? Speaking of awareness, that, it expands, because breathing, it grounds you into the present moment. And it's also life, right? So, I don't know, there's always something powerful about breathing. So sometimes we're not breathing. Breathing affects
Yes.
our mind. So when somebody tells me breathe deeply for 3 times,
Oh my goodness.
that brings oxygen to my brain.
So I can't tell you whether it's this office or wherever I've worked and someone comes in my office like a chicken with their head chopped off but is connected, and I say, all right, let's take a breath. And they go, and I go, so no, take a breath. So listeners, as long as you're not driving a car, what I'd like you to do is be with us symbolically in this room, pause in the moment, and take 3 deep breaths with us. You ready? Take a little bit deeper. And one more. Now, what I love about every time I do this, whether I've demonstrated this in a group, often a group setting, you feel the energy in the room shift. You feel a lighter, energetic space within yourself and within the room. And it's amazing how it's happened every time. There's only 2 of us here, but I'm curious to see what people feel. Go, man, I just took these 3 deep breaths. And you're right. When we take a deep breath, we get oxygen to all of our extremities, including our brain. Now, I'll give you another example of breath. We talked about this last week in our breathwork episode. The Latin word for breath is spiritus. When I'm in the level of the problem, I often need to be inspired. Spirit again, potentially, right? Breath, spirit, it gives us life. When I pause and I take 3 deep breaths, I let in maybe a higher power. I let in this energy force, for sure, that keeps me alive. I pause. And another T. One belief is when we take these 3 deep breaths, I think that's good enough. But he also believes we should transform our mood and think of one specific feeling, and that word is love. So when we take 3 deep breaths, we think, we inhale love, we inhale light, we inhale this energy, this power force that transforms our mood. And I don't know about you, but when I feel love, I don't feel anger. When I feel legitimate love, I don't feel fear. When I feel love, I don't feel anxiety. So there's this level of, and love can be anything. Our friend Harold Green, who did an episode on the 12-step principles in everyday life outside of 12-step meetings, he talks about when he takes these 3 deep breaths, when he meditates, when he sits and stops in silence, his version of love is going back when he was 7 years old in Atlanta fishing in a fishing pond. That's his version of love. Love can be children, it can be higher power, it can be anything you want. But when we allow that in, and part of that breath, I don't know if anyone else has noticed this, when I take a deep breath, it might be the most millimicro nano part of that second of that breath. I am not thinking about a damn thing. Now, when I'm in the level of the problem and my brain is racing a mile a minute and I'm running around like a chicken with my head chopped off, it might be so quick I don't notice it, but at least in that moment, as short or as quick as it is, I'm not thinking about anything. And I think that's very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. This is too much probably of a simplification, but I guess all feelings fall under these 2 umbrella of love and fear. So the thing about breath is that, the thing about worries and anxieties come from a place of fear that I'm not going to be okay. I'm not okay. I'm not okay. But when you take pause and breathe, you're like, oh, I'm safe. There's a sense of safety because breath keeps me alive. And when you're able to breathe, you are like, oh, I am safe and I have everything that I need physically in this moment, although my thoughts are saying otherwise. But when you connect with the breathing, your body realizes that, oh, I'm alive and I'm safe. The temperature is okay. Maybe I need to eat, whatever it may be, you re-access this whole situation.
It goes from negative expectation, negative or fear-based expectation to no expectation, just observance. Yeah. I did this one time for a group of people, 20, 25 people. And I said, transform your mood and think of love. And there was one client and he said, I don't know about you, Luke, but I haven't felt love in a very long time. Oh, I felt that. I felt that he felt that. I believed that he believed that belief. But the coolest thing happened. The other 20, 23 people in that group said, brother, man, it's okay. We love you. And he just broke down crying. I get chills thinking about that. He felt love. His belief system that he hasn't felt love, can't feel love, doesn't believe in it, all of a sudden, gone. That to me is spiritual. To me, that kind of connection, can't make that up.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that love is, those 3 deep breaths. Stop, take 3 deep breaths, transform your mood, think of love, and then we observe. Yeah. After we take these deep breaths, we observe inward. When I'm in contracted awareness, my muscles are tight, my heart's beating, I'm tense. I'm like, man, let me just relax. Sometimes I take more than 3 deep breaths. Let me relax my body. Let me slow down. And then we begin to be curious and observe that inner landscape. Man, why am I angry at Saul right now? Why was my expectation he was here and it wasn't met? Man, and then we start looking at our perspective, our assumptions, our expectations, our unhealthy beliefs. And all of a sudden my hand pointing outwards goes, whoop, and I begin to notice the things about myself and the unhealthy perspectives, expectations, beliefs.
Yeah. I mean, there probably is a very serious intention behind that sequence, right? I cannot start with the observing while I'm in it. I need to pause first. I need to take a deep breath. Only then I can have a non-judgmental awareness point of view of what's happening.
I might need that healthy spiritual inspired something that is me that was blocked to help me change those things. Absolutely. And we begin to observe those things. And all of a sudden we might have that shift in consciousness. All of a sudden we might go from the level of the problem to a level of solution. And then P, we proceed. We proceed with kindness, love, and compassion. Now what I tell people is, you might not be getting kindness, love, and compassion back, but there's no reason, karma episode, feel free to check that out. There's no reason why we can't proceed with kindness, love, and compassion, even though we believe we're not getting it in return.
Yeah, that reminds me of that famous prayer that I've heard in the 12-Step Fellowship. I guess it is a translation about it's better to understand than to be understood. Mm-hmm. It is better to love than to be loved. It makes me think of that we are capable of all that. But I'm more attracted to be loved than to be, I want to be understood. I want to be loved. I don't want to be the one who loved,
Damn it.
In that moment. But it gets returned down the line. Even if other people don't return, I return it to myself. When I come from a place of love, I am love, So it's kind of crazy how it's all internal, which will probably lead us into the open or expanded awareness, right?
Yeah,
Tell me. Yeah, I'm curious.
Our perspective towards a more positive and open-minded outlook, we begin to be the change. Like you said at the beginning, it's the unseen. Sometimes I call it the non-tangible. It's not I'm bumping my shin on that piece of furniture. Let me just move that piece of furniture. Sometimes my problems are that. But often my problems with people, work, relationship, finances are a more, shall I say, spiritual way of looking at things. It's not always the tangible things that I can change in my life where all of a sudden things open up for me.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that. Awareness is vast.
Embracing expanded awareness leads to increased clarity, intuition, wisdom, decision-making. just that ability to shift to whether you call it your higher part of self or this expanded awareness, all of a sudden, because our feelings are different, our belief system's not so rooted in the problem, but rooted in the solution, we're more likely to walk on a solution path. Mm-hmm. So how does that sound?
It sounds good. Yeah, it sounds really good. And that coincides with, maybe I'm not sure if I have mentioned it in the podcast. Maybe I've mentioned it to clients and friends and stuff like that about what meditation does to our mind when we meditate, especially when I have a problem. So
you're saying the STOP acronym happens in meditation? Maybe go ahead.
Yeah. So when I have a problem and when I meditate, it's not an elimination of that problem, but I become aware of other things that is outside of that problem. So it's more about awareness, because we have very limited information. We can choose to just see these things, but the pausing, the stopping, the observation, it makes us become aware of so many other things that are happening already, but I'm not paying attention to, So when there is a problem, it's not about how do I solve this? No, it's more about what else can I see? The truth of the situation here. And that's what I'm hearing about the expanded awareness, is that what is actually going on here? What is it that I'm not seeing? And then becoming aware of that. Otherwise, I'm so channel vision that this is what's happening and this is all I know. Mm-hmm. The more I think about it, the bigger it grows, about the problem. But the trick or the solution, which is more of spiritual in nature, is that what is it that I'm not seeing here? What else can I see?
Mm-hmm. It's that mind-body connection. It's that mind-body awareness. But here's my... oh, wait, there's more, Zal.
Third level?
There's a third level.
Yeah, tell me. What's that?
Contracted, expanded, and the third level, or the highest level of awareness, he calls pure awareness. So if we look at that word pure, purity, not just that good shit when it comes to drugs. Purity is blemishless. It's no faults. This is a level where no problems exist. Okay, let me change the perspective of verbiage for some people. Oh, of course there's problems. I agree. Every challenge is a creative opportunity. You feel completely aligned with the forces of nature. Your inner and outer worlds reflect each other without confusion or conflict. Because solutions arise from the level of true self, they meet no resistance. All your desires lead to the best result for you and your surroundings. As you move from level 1 to level 3, life's challenges become what they are meant to be, a step closer to your true self. Now that I've had a description, what do you think of pure awareness?
Yeah, pure means originality, the origins of things. That's how I interpret it. Even to relate that with the breath too, this is actually from one of my favorite American Buddhist monk that I regularly listen to. I think he just said it casually, but it sticks with me about the fact that, I'm relating this to the purity, is that, the reason why we pay attention to the breath is that everything else came later. Breath came first. Like my resentments, my belief system, my feelings, the way I view the world, they only came later. Breath is how it all began. So that's how I relate with that bliss or purity of awareness, is that this is where everything all came from. It's available, it's pure awareness, and it's just, non-judgmental. It's all good kind of feeling.
It's the way it's supposed to be. It's acceptance. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it would be helpful to kind of conclude it all to, maybe we've already mentioned it, about that we do have access to that, I don't know if we've delivered that message through this episode, that it is possible through holistic approach, meditation, therapy, whatever it is,
Absolutely.
We do have access to that pure awareness, but now we're an instant gratification. It's not like a button switch, but it takes practice and it takes patience.
I'll say I need other people's perspectives to help me with this. Am I always able to do this by myself? No. That's where I think therapy, meditation, support groups are very helpful to get to this higher part of self, if that's how you want to look at it. I joke and I say, okay, pure awareness. That might be Gandhi. That might be Mother Teresa. That might be Buddha. I'll settle for expanded awareness. Thank you very much. Well, yeah, I think it's a good perspective on a way to find a solution. These can be parallel with spiritual principles, Buddhist principles, recovery principles. They certainly align with a lot of things that we certainly talk about on this podcast, as I plugged a few other episodes throughout this episode. Yeah, let's do a conclusion, shall we?
Yeah.
As we end this transformative journey, we hope that you, the most essential part of our podcast, you guys and gals that are listening, have gained valuable insights into this essence of awareness and its profound impact on our lives. Throughout this podcast, we explored the levels of awareness from contracted to expanded and ultimately pure awareness, and how they influence our approach to life's challenges. The truth is, every problem we encounter is an invitation to delve deeper into our spiritual selves. By expanding our awareness, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities, moving beyond the limitations of fear, confusion, and struggle. As we shift from contracted to expanded awareness, we begin to see solutions emerge. Obstacles become easier to overcome, and our vision extends beyond the conflicts that once held us back. Embracing expanded awareness is not a mere abstract concept, but a powerful tool for personal transformation and growth. Through mindfulness, self-reflection, and a genuine connection with our true selves, we can harness the energy of pure awareness, where problems dissolve into creative opportunities and feel aligned with life's natural flow. Zal has shared insights from the Buddhist perspective, highlighting the importance of inner harmony and living in alignment with the forces of nature. His wisdom reminds us that embracing pure awareness makes us free from resistance, effortlessly navigating life's challenges with, hopefully, grace and wisdom. As a therapist, I've witnessed the incredible power of expanded awareness in my clients' lives. Shifting from contracted to expanded awareness can indeed be a life-changing experience. It empowers us to break free from limiting beliefs, overcome fears, and connect with our deepest desires. So we encourage you to embrace the journey of awareness and spirituality in your own life. Practice mindfulness, meditate, and engage in self-reflection. Cultivate a compassionate and loving relationship with yourself and others. By doing so, you'll unlock the immense potential within you, leading to a moving, fulfilling, and purposeful life. But remember, every problem is indeed open to a spiritual solution, and the journey towards the solution begins by expanding your awareness. Sometimes by stopping. Together, let's embark on the path of growth, love, and transformation. Thank you for joining us on this remarkable journey. We're grateful for your presence and look forward to exploring more profound topics in the world of awareness and spirituality and all things health and wellness. So until then, embrace the essence of awareness, and may your life be filled with peace, joy, and boundless possibilities. My name is Luke.
Okay, thank you all for listening. This is Zal.
See you next time.